Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandre Pacheco da Silva, and this is Law and Technology series, a set of interviews with incredible scholars to discuss the impacts of new technologies in the legal field. I'm a law professor at São Paulo Law School at Getúlio Vargas Foundation and one of the coordinators of the Center for Education and Research in Innovation. Today, we have Professor Jay Evans from University of Edinburgh and University of Copenhagen. He's a teaching fellow at the University of Edinburgh and an associate researcher at the University of Copenhagen. He also serves as a faculty for advanced programming in digital health with ISTCE in Lisbon and supports the NHS Digital Academy as a teaching fellow. Professor Evans is the Chief Operating Officer, the COO of Interactive Health Limited, IHL, and he has played an important role in the design and development of well-being. IHL's new mental health and well-being smart app that supports the NHS. As a part of his global work at IHL in the University of Edinburgh, Professor Evans is a co-I for several RCUK funded studies that seek to democratize the dissemination of digital health tools and build capacity within government to manage digital health initiatives. His experience is anchored in design for scale and impact. In South Asia, for example, in Latin America, Professor Evans and his team deployed community-based health programs at scale together with governments. These include one of the largest community-funded child and maternal digital health programs in the world. A few years back, we had the privilege to have Professor Evans in our school for a presentation, for meetings and interaction with our researchers. It was a wonderful experience for us. We enjoyed a lot, and we thank you very much again to accepting our invitation and to be a part of this project. So let me just explain how this interview will work. This interview is divided into 3 questions. I will present the first question to you, Professor Evans, and you have a few minutes to answer, and we'll do the same thing for the next two questions. And feel free to share your thoughts with us and to actually present your views for our audience. So the first question, Professor, it is, how, in your view, is technology impacting the legal field?
Oh, thanks, Alexander. And I want to thank all of the staff, students, and teaching faculty at FGV for the opportunity to share these few thoughts with you all today. I would actually flip that around a little bit, and I would say how law is not how technology is impacting law, but how law is impacting our legal field is impacting technology, and I think. In my opinion, I think the unfortunate answer of that is I think it's slowing down innovation to some extent, particularly in parts of the world. If we look at South America, South Asia, and other countries, the legal frameworks and regulatory frameworks, and including the enforcement infrastructure, hasn't kept pace with the pace, with change. I can only speak from the field of public health. Of course, there's lots of other innovation and technological changes going on in other sectors. But if you look at the impact of AI, for example, and framework legislation that's been passed or discussed in many, legislatures and elected houses of elected officials around the world, you can see that there's still really not a full grasp by policymakers of all of the intricacies involved in deploying and and scaling tools that use AI or use machine learning or use deep learning, and this in turn generates fear and delays legislation and regulations from being passed. If we were to kind of look at how this shakes out and kind of country by country, there are a couple of indices out there that give us indications of things like AI readiness, and one is the one by Oxford Insights. It's not the only one and not the only game in town, but it's one, and it takes into factor 3 pillars, and that's government, meaning government, government policymakers' ability and capacity to legislate and to pass new laws relevant to innovation and AI. It looks at infrastructure, just technological infrastructure in country, broadband and mobile data, the electrical grid, things like this. And then it also looks at the technology infrastructure, which is a combination of things. It's a combination of having kind of the human resource capacity in country to develop new tools, to evaluate, to maintain them, and also the innovation environment overall. And if we look at where countries kind of shake out, at the top are the usual suspects, right? The United States, Singapore, UK. But even there, that doesn't really indicate how easy or hard it is to implement new technology. It just means the structures are there. They're very nascent. And a lot of innovators have difficulty even navigating those markets that would be considered to be AI ready or ready for these new innovations and new technologies. If we begin to look at like South America, Brazil tops the list. I think you guys are number 37, or if I'm not mistaken. Behind you is Colombia. As a matter of fact, you rank right up there with Qatar. But the rest of South America is far below you. So an example of this would be if you had someone who is innovating, why is law behind technology and causing this lag? Well, let's give an example. If you have innovators, which if there are tons and tons in Sao Paulo that are looking at a new solution for looking at net carbon emissions using AI or something like this, and you want to go to introduce this technology in neighboring countries, it's likely that countries that are your neighbors who are way below Brazil in terms of the AI readiness don't even have the frameworks available yet so that this company can commercialize that opportunity, simply because there's no regulatory structure in place. And so the tool might be viable, it might be feasible, you might have a proof of market in Brazil, but you're stuck because you can't expand into other markets. And I think this is why I'm saying that I think law is actually now impacting on technology rather than the other way around.
Very interesting. And my second question for you, Professor, is there a field of study that we can call law and technology? Because as you mentioned before, we have this relationship between how the legal field could impact innovation, could in a way foster innovation or serve as an obstacle to people that want to actually create companies, provide services, and create new types of services and technologies. And at least in my understanding of your first answer, one of the things that would be good for the legal field, it would be the creation of a field that we can call law and technology, to actually investigate this sophisticated, or I say complex relationship. But what are your thoughts about the second question?
Absolutely. No, thanks for that again. I think maybe perhaps a better name instead of law and technology. Technology has been around for a long time, whether that's the automobile or whether that's industrial manufacturing. The law has had to keep pace with several big leaps in technological changes throughout the decades, and it's done that reasonably well. And normally it's kind of a push and pull process where something happens, maybe an accident in a factory happens, that then people rise up and they make their elected officials pass laws related to industrial safety, And then law, then law takes that on and begins to create the regulatory structure and the enforcement structure to make that happen. I think what's occurred here is that so this is actually looking where we're at now is a time, particularly in the field of health. Again, this, which is my frame of reference, we're at a time where that pace of change is so fast that that legislation can't keep up. You might have law firms that are have very savvy individuals that work in there. You might have lawyers that understand the issues, but legislatures are composed of, you guys know this, lots of people with lots of different backgrounds, and it's really building that capacity within the legislature to address it. I would almost call the field law and innovation rather than law and technology. I think there are several opportunities for law and innovation to interact in a productive way. An example, just one example, here in the UK, for example, there's some, in the field of health, again, there's something called the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, NICE. NICE has a number of guidelines across all kinds of things, medicines, clinical safety, all of this. But one of the areas of guidelines that they have is around technology, and they have a kind of a series of guidance that they publish that's endorsed by the National Health System here in the UK, called Digital Technology Assessment Criteria, DTAC. So DTAC is a combination of two things. It combines law, so you take what framework legislation there is, the regulatory structures that exist, along with best practice. So that guidance, which is endorsed by the government, essentially, combines those two elements. And that helps new companies who are trying to introduce new tools into, a hospital, an NHS board, know what they're up against, not both in terms of the regulatory requirements they have to meet, as well as kind of what's been best practice in the field. And that kind of structure, I think, would in any country, whether that's here or United States, Brazil, Colombia, wherever it happen to be, I think lends itself to better innovation and better results from innovation. Again, if you're looking at innovation that occurs for industry or innovation that occurs for health, having that combination of a guide, of a criteria that combines legislation and also best practice is would really boost the sector. So yeah, so while law and technology I think have been around for a long time, I think this is a new age and stage, and we also must, you have to think about issues like this. If a company creates a tool that uses AI, and that AI on its own does harm, is the company liable? And is the company liable for 100 years or for 50 years? Or is it like a kid? For the first 10 years, this AI is learning. We as the company that own it, we take responsibility. But after those 10 years or 18 years, it's its own responsibility. And what constitutes the culpability of a company versus the culpability of this AI, which in and of itself might be, an AI might stretch across various platforms and in the future might be owned by various entities and not just one. There's all kinds of examples of that could occur between, say, health and environment, or transport, things like this, where you've got AI that stretches across or shared across multiple providers, and who, if that AI makes a mistake, who's culpable in that instance? Quite interesting, but big challenges, I think, for a field that might, again, I think is better expressed, I think, is maybe law and innovation, because we're at a pace of change that we've never seen before, to my knowledge.
That's very interesting to hear, because we discuss a lot about how law schools should react in terms of their curriculum, in terms of their agenda, So my final question for you, Professor, it is, what should a law school do regarding the impacts of technology in the legal field? You mentioned, for example, a very good suggestion, recommendation to think about not only technology, but about innovation as a more broad process that could, in a way, include, for example, discussions regarding AI, discussions regarding different types of technology. So in your view, what do you think that would be a good response from law schools to deal with the complexity of our world today?
Thanks again for the question. I think it all comes down to leadership in digital and innovation. If you look at a lot of business schools have this now, kind of digital leadership. Also, if you look here in the UK, within the National Health Service, you have digital health leadership programs for staff within the National Health Service that provide the background on several things, design, implementation, leadership, how leadership in digital and leadership in innovation differs from maybe the traditional leadership in business that we might think of. And I think it would be wise for law schools to do the same and to think in this manner. If you, and this is for very practical purposes as well, if you're brought into a courtroom to either as counsel or maybe you're in as a judge, there needs the person, whoever that is, needs to have an acute awareness of the intricacies of design that go into AI and deep learning and machine learning and the design that's behind it. If you don't understand the design of a tool or what good practice is in design, it's very difficult to evaluate evaluate culpability many times, because if you're comparing one system to another system, but you don't understand how each system is designed, it doesn't allow you to leverage that for your client, or in the case of a judge, to be able to take the information at hand and render a decision in the in the courtroom based on the facts. So I think, again, having classes, having maybe even extracurricular activities that are related to digital leadership, digital design, I think would be good investments for law schools, because every single person who's going to enter a courtroom or who's going to be in law, from now on, this is going to be part of their lives, and they will no doubt be represented, be counsel for either the plaintiff or defendant in a case where they have to represent what a piece of technology did right or wrong and who's culpable in that case. And so I think it's really a basic skill set that should be shared. And this is across the board. This isn't just for law. I think this applies certainly to business. I think it applies, definitely to healthcare. Every health system around the world should be training its health workers in what good digital leadership looks like and what good digital design looks like, so people can ask the right questions. Because if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to go on a journey of discovery that uncovers the truth. And that's, that's relevant to any profession: journalism, law, health, I mean, you name it. So I think that proper training and background in, again, digital leadership and design in innovation, I think would be key in supporting, let's say, a new and revised law school curriculum.
That's very interesting. I would say that one of the things that we discuss a lot, it is digital literacy and digital leadership, as you mentioned. And we discuss a lot those subjects, and we try to create and to develop courses that could relate with that, saying that and trying to promise to our students that there is a good future for them if they would be engaged not only in those topics, but in new courses that could deal with the complexity of our world. So to finish our interview, I'll ask you, Professor Evans, if you have a message for our students, a message for how can they cope with the complexity of our times.
I would say it goes back to design. Take, again, whether you're in law or health or whatever field you're in, understanding how tools are designed, the tools that you might use on your phone, something like TikTok, Facebook, understanding what are the drivers for that tool, what information the tool is collecting, how it's been designed, how it's designed to engage you, and the changes in behavior that it might cause, I think are extremely important for anyone to understand, and that's from any field. However, I think on, particularly in the legal field and law, there's an additional burden, because those students now who are law students, they'll be in the courtroom, they'll be representing civil cases, perhaps criminal cases that involve AI, and this is a monster shift from the last 4, 5, 6, 7 decades, and I think before you can begin to represent effectively as counsel, you've got to understand design. What informed the design for that tool? Who was involved? How they did it? What were the building blocks that made that tool come into being? I think having a really good awareness of that will only help someone be better counsel, a better advisor to their client, in the future. And it's critical because we will all, reach some case, whether as a business or as a person, where we're going to be involved in some, perhaps civil action against a company for a data breach, for, that AI did this without my knowledge and I didn't consent to it. But when I perform this act of consent, did I consent that this machine learning or AI tool will continue to use my data for the next 50, 60, 70 years? I mean, questions like this that I think, again, having a really good awareness, really good understanding of designing the tools will help make better lawyers and better representatives for whether you're a defendant or a plaintiff in a case. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Professor Evans.
Welcome. Yeah.
It was a pleasure to have you here with us today. And I also thank our audience to actually be not here, but virtually here with us. And I will invite you to watch the interviews in our series, and see you next time. Thank you.